Hey, everybody, this is Mike. I just want to let you know that after the podcast, we're going to have an interview with Parker Watt, one of our newest coaches. Please stick around and check him out. Talented athlete, great guy, awesome coach. All right, here we go. Both in a great mood.
Both in a great mood. It's a Tuesday. It's a beautiful Tuesday. It's June. It's June 4th, the year. It's 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 774.
Yep, inching closer.
Inching closer. I do say I want to give a solid shout out. We had quite a few emails the last few weeks about people really enjoying the cast. I feel like we've raised it to a new level, and I gotta say, I agree. I feel like our last 2-3 weeks of podcasts have been solid and spot on. Listen, we're the first ones to admit we are never perfect.
No,
and we're greatly mediocre, but sometimes we have some shiners, and sometimes we have some not so shiners. But yeah, it's been a pretty good groove. Race season, I think, always seems to kind of bring up a lot of great topics for you and I, both as athletes and coaches, but also when we've worked with athletes, there's always something, right? There's always something that people are questioning or curious about or trying to figure out. And it's an endless. Even I was like listening to a podcast this morning. With it was an interview of the guy that was a co-founder of Training Peaks, and he was going back through and talking about like the early days of training, and I was like, I can remember that in like the very first years, like I got into triathlon, like using a spreadsheet, I remember getting like my first Timex, like Ironman Timex, like heart rate monitor was like the jam. Like I thought I was like I was like Silicon Valley back then. I was living in the tech world.
Damn.
And then the first few athletes I coached, there was the big power meter in the market. The two biggest power meters in the market that started were Power Tap. So it was a hub base, which I still think was the best power meter ever. It was a hub base in your rear wheel, so it was really, really accurate. Never high, never low, just spot on. And then SRM, which is like this. That included like more wires than like an AT&T service board and his giant head unit. And you couldn't download it to like, Bluetooth wasn't available. Garmin Connect wasn't available. It didn't even sync with like any like training platform. People had to like email me training like power profiles, and you had to download them and look at them on your computer separately. And then honestly, to be totally honest, I feel like I have more questions and like the sport, it isn't more complex, but the how available. I'm hesitant to call it information because when I hear the word information, I hear like actionable information. It's good intel. It's actually, pertinent to the sport. It's not, and there's maybe noise is a better thing. There's just so much noise out there, and everybody, and us included, right? We've got a podcast, so we can't really throw a stone, but there's so many, magazine articles and Facebook groups and coaches and, professional athletes are now, so out there, and there's, again, there's just so much information. And honestly, like it creates more questions from athletes, which again, as coaches, like causes you to question certain things, even if you shouldn't, right? Like just, you're like, maybe I haven't thought about that lately. You think about it. It's just, again, it's like, it's the same exact sport. There's been advances in it. But it's a never ending journey for athletes. And then that also makes it a never ending journey as coaches. And so, yeah, when we get into kind of race season, it always is interesting how this topics and the agendas and the questions always kind of rise to the surface, the more and more races they have. I mean, hell, this weekend there's 4 big time 70.3s just in North America: Western Massachusetts, Des Moines, Boulder, Eagle, man. It's nuts, which is awesome. But yeah, I've enjoyed the few last podcasts that we've done, and it's again, we talked about a lot actually before we went on air today. It's just, as much as there's still very little of what really matters and to focus on. And we do our best to keep that in focus.
Yeah.
As best we can.
Well, Yeah, I was thinking about when you said that. We're certainly in the space where there's noise and creating all that. I do think that we try to do a good job of kind of cutting through things. I mean, it's not easy, but I mean, we're it's sort of like we're volunteers in a sense. We're kind of just coming to the mic every week, twice a week. I mean, it's kind of hard to, be critical of an Ironman volunteer or something. I mean, they're just giving their time or whatever, and we're just doing that. But I do think that we're both on a quest and looking for, I always look at it as getting as far back to the basics of our human existence as possible and cutting through that stuff. And, for me, a lot of times I think most of us, if we quiet ourselves and think and just sit down and really just let the answer come to us, it comes to it. I mean, we have the answers, you know what I mean? And we're just, I just think sometimes the best solution is looking inward versus always going out to these frayed out limbs of information all over the hell, because everyone, there's just and a lot of times, even when I'm titling podcasts or something like that, I try not to come up with something, salacious or some kind of like crazy title. And just because of that, because I'm not trying to lure anyone in and trick people, even though I did come from the news business where I don't know. I don't want to say a master tease writer, but I did it for like 20 years almost. And I understand the dynamics of it. So I always go the other way a lot of times on purpose. And I just want to, I think that's something to think about, because I think we put these questions out to people to kind of go in and really think about what's going on rather than always chasing that shiny thing.
Well, I mean, I think that's why we make such a great combination on air too, and in business is like, I've always admired your level of simplicity in life and in training. And I think like most athletes, I think and coaches too, even like a lot of coaches now, like they want to use the, what I consider like the flair, like the for an Office Space, reference, the sprinkles, the shiny things, the lactate testing and the fancy metrics and the specialization of this. And it's like, cause that's what people look for now. But, at the core of the sport and what we do, like it's pretty freaking simple. You swim, you bike, you run. And now I generally believe this is because I think yesterday I was kind of going back through Training Peaks and like we have a massive library of workouts, like from the very first workout I created in my Training Peaks coach account, like I think 12 years ago, to the ones that we've created like in the last week. And it's funny, like if you wanted to take like 7 or 8 different bike workouts created that, kind of ultimately go in like the same category of, maybe it's muscular endurance. And over the last 10, 12 years, like, the very first one I write, definitely not pre-build, definitely pretty simple, probably some typos. I mean, hell, I still got typos. Kind of looks like just very amateurish. It's like back then it was like watching, it was like reading like straight, regular manuscript handwriting. And now it's like, it looks like code. But the fact of the matter is it's almost the exact same session. It just looks a little bit different. And so I think that we spend, and I think a lot of times even, marketing is such a huge piece, and obviously something that you're sensitive to just from your time in the news business. Is like a lot of the metrics and the data and in the claims that bikes and software companies and disc wheels and power meters and helmets and wetsuits, like a lot of the stuff that we use is really just to serve our inability to stay focused and our obsession with being distracted and looking for like quick fixes, right? And I mean, honestly, you can't blame them, right? Like the average person is so distracted these days and looking for like we look for something so complicated and honestly, like the biggest answer is right in front of us. And you and I get this a ton as coaches is, an athlete will ask like a very complicated question to them, and looking for like a next level or a next piece of this. I'm like, well, before we even get to that level, we really just need to do the basics. And the fact is that pretty much any athlete from, back of the pack sprint athlete up to a professional, like we all generally should follow the same simple training outline, right? It's like you do a lot of easy work and a little bit of hard work, and that's kind of it, and it's funny looking back on the different crazes and phases as a coach that we've all been in. There's, the 80-20 was such a huge focus, for a long period of time. And, Matt Fitzgerald coined that. He's got his training plans that are built on 80-20 and the marketing behind that, based off of Steven Seiler's research. And it was all based on like the Norway cross-country skiers, kind of how they went through their year. And they found it was very polarized. And so you got 80-20 of the craze. And then, when gyms kind of exploded in the mid 2000s with CrossFit and other things, it was all about HIIT. HIIT came in. HIIT's huge, high intensity interval training. I got to do it, man. I got to do more quality work. It's not, I got to do more quality. It's less about quantity. It's more about quality. That was the big craze. And then obviously like the last, 2 or 3 years, it was, it was all about, lactate testing, the Norwegians, like the whole country. And now you look and it's just like, there's one, Christian Blumenfeld, Gustav Fiedon's been injured and going through some. It's like everyone was asking about that. And we're doing this, we're doing that. And then you got, and now we're in fueling, right? Fueling is such a giant topic. You got, we kind of referenced this, I think, last week, right? It was, it's all about, training your gut, and we got to do this, and we, we got to try to get in like 120 carbs an hour. And then you got the other end of the spectrum, and it's, you got to be all about metabolic flexibility, and you got fat adapt. That was another craze, right? Like I remember I had athletes, like this is pre-COVID, maybe it was like 2000 or it's 2017, 18. I had athletes running off almonds and bacon for like 6 weeks, like trying to go keto, and like how many phases we go in as, the sprint distance phase and Ironman phase, and they're kind of seeing a shift down to like 70.3 is not even close. It is the most popular distance without question. And so like as a coach, when you've been around for such a long time, and I've been around for a very long time, and so have you. I mean, you've been around for a really long time as a coach too. Like it's interesting to kind of look back and see the difference in like the phases and the crazes, right, of what athletes kind of grab onto, and then what they kind of ultimately look back on and think like that was really like kind of a bad idea, and you get people like, 2 to 3 runs a week is it, like running hurts you. Like, no, it doesn't, or like shorter is better and longer is better. There's just so many polarizing differences, and I think people gravitate towards those, much like they gravitate towards crash dieting, right? Because it's so extreme. They feel like making this extreme adjustment in their life is going to, and I find this with athletes too, is like the more extreme an athlete goes, they're craving something in the actually, like they're struggling with something in the equal opposite direction. So the more extreme an athlete usually goes and like what they want to do with their training or their racing, if you look back, is that what they're actually doing is they're trying to remedy the extreme level of inconsistency and complacency that they've shown the last few weeks, right? We always kind of like, try to overcompensate where we are. And athletes do that too. Like when they become, disassociated with training or bored with training, I need something different. I'm like, you don't. Like if you want to get better, you don't. You want to do the same stuff over and over and over again. If you want to be entertained, that's fine, but you come with sacrifices. But if you look back at kind of the basics, it's the basics, right? You swim a lot, you swim the right way, you bike a lot, you bike the right way, and you run as much as you can, and you run the right way. And spend 90% of your time focusing on those things, right? Mm. And then move on to nutrition. And I honestly don't. I mean, I know everyone has like a stance, right, of like where they stand with nutrition. It's like I've found that day-to-day nutrition and fueling has now become like it's right below politics and religion. Like it's a very, very like it's very important what your stance is on this. And even more so your stance on what's best for males and what's best for females. And I honestly don't have a preference. What I do think is you should do, I heard a great quote from Dr. Phil Mapatone a few months ago, listening to a podcast he did. And he said, I think people overestimate the fact that being really, really fit means being really, really healthy. And, the amount of, junk that you put in your body to supposedly fuel you the right way. And that kind of shifted my thinking in a few different ways. But going back to the topic in that, the training that we do is very simple. The fact that Training Peaks or Tridot or Athletica or, Final Surge, offers all these bells and whistles doesn't mean you need them on race day. Some things are great, some things are not. And I do think that it's actually made it. I'm sorry if I'm going on a rant right now.
Oh,
I think
right,
it's
man.
actually made it very difficult for the sport, for athletes to get into it. I compare the amount of noise and color out there. When I say noise and highlighted, I'm talking about metrics and Training Peaks and $15,000 bikes and $3,000 disc wheels and $800 helmets and $700 wetsuits. Like, that stuff already makes it incredibly off-putting to the majority of the population, right? And you take that, then you take, what are you training with? What's your zone model? Are you high intensity? Are you low intensity? Everyone wants you to just adopt to something because they want to relate to it or they want to argue with it, and give their point of view. And I think it's made it really hard for newer athletes to get into the sport because they see all this junk that they supposedly need to buy, $350 super shoes, right? Bike shoes molded to your feet and socks that are supposed to take off 5 watts, aero testing. It's unreal, right? Like the amount of stuff that you see out there, and obviously professional athletes, that's their job. And it's like they not only have to purchase a bunch of shit, but you're like, I don't know if I have the brain power to create my own training plan and listen to all these things that are. I mean, you and I were just joking before we went live of like how many apps now integrate with Training Peaks, right? So, I was joking earlier. I've got an athlete that uses has an Oura ring, right? So it tracks HRV and resting heart rate and all these kind of recovery metrics. That syncs Training Peaks. So imagine this. I've got a day where I've got a 35-minute run and a swim. So you got a 35-minute run and a swim. Then I've got the Oura ring metrics populating on there. And then on top of that, I've got the fuel in, like a fueling app metrics. It looks like if you've seen Good Will Hunting, like the day that he walks into that
chalkboard.
Yes, exactly. That chalkboard, it looks like that. And if you think about like a beginner athlete or even just an athlete who just wants to work off simplicity, you're like, I don't even know where to begin. And I don't even want this stuff, but you feel like you have to have it. And the truth of the matter is you need about 10% of it. You need the gear. You need, in my opinion, we've kind of gotten into the space where athletes spend more time wanting and searching for more products, more gear, more metrics, more ways to analyze. And the fact is you need about 10% of that, but what you really need is 100% of your commitment level to being consistent. And the energy level has shifted, I've seen as a coach with a lot of athletes, that their time and energy is being sucked from, that kind of carry water, chop wood mentality to, I wonder how easily I can get the water from here to there, and not just the water. I wonder if it can be like ionized, filtrated, super Fiji water. And if that could actually increase my oxygen uptake while I get to chop wood. But before we even get to chopping wood, there's this new carbon plated super axe that came out. It's only like $2,500, but apparently it increases your swing velocity when you're going to chop. So I've been researching that for a few weeks. I haven't chopped any wood yet, but that's just kind of where my head's at. And I was wondering if you guys incorporate that into your training. Like that's the example of where we came from, like to where we are now. And it's the overcomplication and overanalyzation of things that you don't need while you spend energy searching for those things and not applying it to the basics, which is, again, carry water, chop wood, do the work, move on to the next one, rinse, repeat. It really is that simple. Sorry about that.
No. It's but that's a really great segue there, man. It's perfect for what I was thinking, man. We just get so far ahead of ourselves. And, you know, like, I'm sure most people have said or thought, you know, I'm going to write a book about that. I'm going to write a book. And, you know, the best way to write a book is to actually write a book. Just write it, because, you know, now I'm sort of in that camp. I've got 18,000 outlines for books that I'm going to write. And then you start looking at these apps, and the app can lay it out for you, and the app can do this, and then you can have it edited by this app and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I got to make sure all that shit's lined up, and then I can write. No, you got to write the book. You got to go through the training, you know. I talk with athletes. I mean, like, for me, it's important to talk with athletes, and I'm really into this concept, you know, of just sort of being grounded and being who you are, and who are you and what are you capable of, really, like, truly, you know, because we can lay these plans out. We've all seen it. You know, the thing about all these add-on apps and everything like that, to me, it's sort of this procrastination towards perfectionism or something, because you know how it goes, man. You can train, you know, like, as we're going through the training program on the way to the race, we're thinking, okay, I'm nailing this. This race is going to just go perfectly. And it never does. And so I mean, well, within reason, you know, but what my point is, it's not going to be easy no matter what, because it's all relative. You know, I don't care if you're trying to go for the podium or trying to finish your first or trying to be better in the middle or whatever it is. You got to somehow be able to figure out a way to get through rough shit. And so to me, I look for those moments in training. Like, sometimes, you know, you have your big bike and then a long run on Sunday, and some people really have a hard, you know, of course the weather now is the humid, you know, it's the same every year, right? But we always forget it, or somehow it surprises us that the summer gets humid and hot in the, you know, around now. But I always try to point out that when they're out doing these things, that's the muscle to build. It may feel like shit. It may be, you know, nothing like you hoped it would be. But if you can get through it, all right, now we're on to something, because we're tying that into something that's going to happen in the race, and it's experience. And you can't get better at something without doing it. And, like, those are the little things, right? So we always talk about following a training plan. It's like, you know, you have 5 people and they all follow the exact same training plan. Why do some, you know, say they're all, you know, sort of talent average or on the same plane? Why do certain people do better? I don't know. There's little nuances throughout training too, right? You know, we're doing the same exact workouts, but are we pushing those bike intervals? Are we pushing in the pool harder than the other person? You know, the workout results may look similar, but it all comes back to you and starting to believe in what you can put out there, or what you can get through. And I love talking to athletes on race week, because there's always a lot of emotions, and we try to just, you know, boil it back down to the simplest parts. You know, it's kind of like, take a deep breath, go swim, take a deep breath, go for a bike ride, take a deep breath and go for your run. It's not, you know, pedal to the metal, like, I'm going to kill myself today. You know, it's like, you have to really have a good grasp on what you're doing that day. And those are the things I look for, honestly. You know, I'm not you know, I was telling you beforehand, I just get so frustrated. I've got like 35 passwords to shit that I don't even know what it is. You know, every day it's something new, and I got to spend like 8 hours looking for, you know, shit, and I don't even get anything done half the time. But I just feel like we complicate things so much. And when we pull back the curtain We got to look at ourselves and see what we can get through and what we can perform on. You know, I know a lot of people aren't Goggins fans, but there's something in that dude that just really intrigues me, and it's just the potential of the human body or the human. That's the thing for me. You know, I love reading about how he works his mind to get through certain situations, and I don't ever think I'm going to be anything close to that, but I certainly I can learn from that, because that's when I think of racing, man, that's what I think of. It's like, how deep can you go? And then we've talked about it a million times, and you get to the final, you know, quarter mile running down the carpet and you start feeling good again. I mean, that needs to be investigated. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on in your mind that you can't run the second half of a marathon, but you can run the last mile at a clip, you know? I just think that if you want to race faster, those are the problems that you got to solve.
Well, those require work, Michael.
I know, you know,
a little bit. And like, it's funny, as like how I was hearing you talk, I was thinking through, like, you know, athletes post race, and it's really funny because when an athlete gets done post race, they do like a self critique of their day. It's never about gear. You know, Coach, like I really think if I had like a slightly different aero helmet, and I probably shifted away from the Meta Speed Skies to the Endorphin Pro Speeds, I'm pretty sure, dude, like we could probably pick up a few minutes. And I think that would have actually gotten me the PR I was looking for today. Never. But pre-race, what shoes, what helmet, what gear, are we on the right track? You know, do we need to change things up from it? It's all about the you know, the extras. The post race, it's funny because the post race, I think it brings people down to a little more. It's a reality check, right? Races are a reality check. An athlete has had like a really hard, super stressful last 2 weeks. More than 2 weeks, like last month. Then a half marathon. Like, hey, I see you had me kind of like tapered into the half marathon, and I was really just planning on just kind of tapering and just kind of racing through it. And I said, you know, I can see where that might seem like the best idea, but if you're going to do this half marathon, then we need to be rested going into it so we can get back to training after it, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, okay, that's fine, you know. And then they went out, and then they ended up pulling out after 10K of the half. And I could tell they were kind of disappointed. They sent me a voice message. Okay, you know, I'm okay. Like I didn't have it today, but he was like, I'm not down in the dumps, but it was a reality check of kind of where I thought I was versus kind of where I am. And I think every athlete needs that. And I think I don't think we get them enough in terms of like we do. I think we all think, you know, we're special. And I'm not saying you guys aren't, but I'm pretty much saying, like, you know, we're really not. We're all pretty much the same. We've all got different problems, but they're all problems, right? But we all think we're special. We all think we need this special thing, you know. And we get this all the time. As you know, a lot of times, coach, hey, you know, I was telling you, like, what works best for me is this. I'm like, how do you know? Well, that's what I've done in the past. I'm like, well, who's in the world has said that's the best thing for you? I just told them that's what you like to do. But when it comes to like reality checks, swimming more, in open water more, taking on more hills, you know, challenging yourself to recover more, like all these basics, like when we have these reality checks at races, again, it never comes back to the gear. It comes back to the work. You know, I realized I feel like I really need to work more on my cycling or my mentality, right? Like there's that, to me, that is like, you know, your mind is the final frontier. There's so much to be learned and trained and explored in our own heads and what it can make. And going back to like your Goggins thing, like I never follow his stuff, but you know, but I admire, respect, and I'm kind of in awe of his mentality, and not just his one and done mentality, but his consistent mentality, of like just having that over and over and over again, because it takes a lot of work. And so like, athletes, when they have these reality checks, like I think I need to be tougher up top. I think I need to be tougher in the body. I think I need to do this. It always comes down to work, like real good old fashioned work, and it doesn't come down to the gear or the extra metrics or the extra, it just comes down to fucking work. And we just get so, distracted by the other things that we forget to do the work because it doesn't sell. I mean, I think I've had him on here and I reference him a lot of things, but Dr. Alex Harrison, like his app, Saturday app, it's so simple, but I've had so many athletes that have so much success using it. It's water out of your tap, salt from the salt shaker, and sugar from the pantry. And it costs you probably like $50 a year. Versus, versus like buying a bag of like the latest, greatest, like train your gut carbs. It's like $65 for 12 servings. It's like, it's insanity, but that's what people like. I think we do. Like we were now in that phase, and we've been there, that the more complicated it is, the better it has to be. And honestly, it's like the farthest thing from the truth, right? It's like the basics in life of like health, eat well and move well. That's the basics to like a pretty damn good life. But most people like don't do any of those. They overcomplicate everything. I can get away with this. I'm like, well, is that really like? And honestly, I have the same belief system when it comes to training your gut. I can get away with 6 hours of sleep. I'll sleep and I'm dead, bro. You're like, well, yeah, that might be a 56. It's like we sacrifice so much. Or I can train more. I can go hard. I'm like, it's not the answer. Like the minimal effective dose, simplicity, the simplest way is. Now, yeah, do you need variation sometimes in it? But variation to me doesn't mean complicated. It means the simplest form, right? Because when you, as coaches, like we work backwards from Z to A. Your race is this. This is where you need to go. This is what's required. And then we start working our way towards it. It's that simple. And then if I'm training Mike and then we're training in a very simple form and we're just checking boxes, but then I see like one box is not getting, checked at the same rate the other boxes are, right? Well, then the answer is like we maybe scale back the other two boxes that are getting quickly checked and put more emphasis on, the run. Make sure we're checking that box so it all catches up to each other. Like I remember way back in the day when I was working at the gyms, like you see people doing, be like me, be like, hey, Mike, go to the gym and you can do, 200 pounds on the leg extension machine. You're just racking out. You got big, muscular, sexy quads. You're just pounding out, pound after pound. And then you flip over and do hamstring curls and you're doing like 30s. Yeah, the next time he goes to the gym, he needs to put more time on the hamstring because they become even, right? Simple thing. It's not, oh, well, what I think I need to do is I think I need to do more, dynamic squat lifts with 17 kettlebells. I balance 2 on my toes, a couple on my shoulders, because it really balances things out. That's what I'm looking for is like total body balance. Then just get back on the fucking hamstring curl machine and do more work there and slow down on the other one. Let it catch up. Again, simple things, checking boxes. It is that, right? One moves up, the others need to come with it. So now you move things over, move this. You need to move things a little bit. But again, that's not making it complicated. It's taking the next the shortest route to get there in the simplest fashion. That's it. And we either get to like a dead end and we see that we need to shift, right? A simple shift. And we either do like a total U-turn or we take like a hard right down an alleyway that we shouldn't be taking. In your training GPS is saying every 3 seconds, rerouting. No, I think this is the best way. And you were so close to getting it done the right way. All you need to do is like take a quick pit stop or take a little bit of a detour. We're still trying to get to the same destination. And again, we spend a significant time of trying to go the extra mile in the, ancillary type things. And it's that time and energy is usually wasted and not invested in the area that gets the biggest bang for the buck, which is the work that you do. And I just think that, we all need reminders, and coaches too, right? Because we're inundated with questions about, well, I saw this or I saw that, or I've been researching this, and what do you think about this? And, a lot of times, like, you have to pay attention to it, because some things are great and some things aren't. I read a lot, listen to a lot, and some things I'm like, man, that kind of makes a lot of sense. And then I'll look at it and I look at our training and how we do things. I'm like, oh, we already kind of do that, just in a different way. Or I might see something like, man, that looks fantastic. Like, maybe I'll try this. And then I look at it, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I think that's ridiculous. Or you take a little bit and you apply it. It's never like a total reinvention of the wheel. It's kind of just like, maybe changing out a spoke here and there, maybe getting a new hub, but the simplicity of the wheel stays the simplicity of the wheel, and then it's round, right? It's not square. It's not, there's so many, if you've been around as long as you and I have, like, you've just seen so many, if it was back in the day, aero bars had to be, some people pointed them down. I remember this like very, very vividly. The first couple of people I ever fitted on bikes, God, back in like early 2000s. Like back then, you had like 3T, which is a European company that makes aero bars. Like people like the trend then, the Tour de France time trials, was to point base bars down and arms down, because we thought that was the fastest, the way to make people the fastest. You had to be super flat, on your back to be fast. You got to be aero this way. And you not only had to do like this, right? You had to be arms pointed down and back totally flat. But we want to run our tires at 22 millimeter tires, and they got to be at the highest PSI possible. The skinniest tire, the better. Well, fast forward to now. And it's the absolute total opposite in everything. Now people are rocking 28 millimeter tires on low PSI for better rolling resistance and better ride comfort. Most all people are going to a tilted up arm position. Flat backs aren't nearly as important as how you can minimize your kind of frontal drag. So kind of like shrugging your shoulders in. It's all opposite. All of it. But to me, like, that's like the very small end of the spear, right? The like the last 5% of it. The rest of it's work. And the work has always been the same. And the work has really never changed. If you look across the sport, in cycling, swimming, running, like they've been doing the same stuff for the last 50 to 60 years to get them to where they are now. And then you can go back and look at like the best times, right, that we're still trying to beat from, forever and forever and forever ago. You think Katie Ledecky, who I think owns like 17 of the top 20 mile times, you think she reinvents the wheel every year? No. She just tries to just get a little bit better. I doubt she even wears a watch in the pool, a freaking pool clock, and a set on a note card. You don't see her rocking form goggles. You don't see her with, a bunch of data and wires connected to her. It's just work. Same thing with the best runners on the planet, right? Half of them live together in Kenya. They eat rice and beans pretty much every day, and they run super chill, easier than most people training to go to Boston. And they run the hard stuff hard, and they're not rocking $400 shoes, and they're the fastest people on the planet. You look at the professional cycling teams and the stuff that they do. They're riding so insanely easy, but they're just doing tons and tons and tons and tons of time. It's that simple. Yet we get those of us on such a, and I think I've said this before, is like most age groupers try to act like pros in areas that pros try to act like age groupers. Yeah. And keeping things as simple as they should be, and the volume and the intensity and the integrity of what they're trying to do is the people get so lost so often on on everything. And it does. I think it just causes. I mean, we talked about it again a bit before the podcast is how, because I think texting and metrics are very similar. Texting, how you receive a text has zero to do with the other person. Although I will say you don't ever K me or we're done. You're dead to me. Used to be a care. You'll probably K me later today too, just to do it. I'm anti-care. But it's the text that you get in all caps. Another pet peeve. Don't write me notes and Training Peaks with all caps. It doesn't make me want to read it more. I feel like you're yelling and it makes me not want to read it. But the other one is the way you receive a text is not based on really the person that's sending it. It's on your mood. Like if you're feeling down and vulnerable and you get a text, you're gonna be you're gonna take it a lot more sensitive than you would if you're having a good day. Someone sends you kind of a jerky text that could be taken either way, and you are in a great mood, you're more likely to take it with a grain of salt. Like, that's all good, man. Whatever. You take it that way. Metrics, exact same. You're in a bad mood. You're expecting greatness out of your run, and you get done with it, and you come back and you look at it. You're just, and it doesn't, and it's like 2 seconds off the pace you wanted. You're done for the day. You're inconsolable. You're on the couch. You got tissues. You got a gallon of ice cream. You're binging on, Netflix. It's my day's over. Because you were looking for something so bad it didn't happen. Versus you go out and you do a 30-minute run because you do a 30-minute run. You click stop. You click save. It uploads, and you move on with your day. And it's just there's so much left out there digitally now for interpretation that the actual numbers that you get are so clouded and contaminated by your need for something. Like you need for it to be better for whatever reason, not for fitness reasons, but because you need a self-esteem boost for the day because you're not getting it from anywhere else, or you're not feeling fast. You need this. And then that's what it gives you. It gives you nothing. It doesn't matter how good it is. Because then if it is good, my GPS was off today. I can't be going that fast. Like, when are we ever going to just accept a win for a win? Texting, metrics, all that data it's so contaminated by our mood and what we're looking for. We rarely ever get to see like actually what it is, which is why as coaches, like you see a downloaded session and your question is always, how'd this feel? Well, it felt great, or it felt poor. Like context, we've forgotten the importance of context with everything. Text context, metrics, data, session context. Was the day good or bad? What was the context behind that? We're missing it. And I think the more that the harder we can work to include context, or at least the ability and opportunity to provide it in a meaningful way, not with extra data and extra metrics and extra, gear, just conversation and voices and context, like context and work and the work around the like that. To me, that gets us 90% of the way. And I think makes you a better person and a better human while training than being obsessed with things that give you no return.
Mm. Well, I want to go back a little bit there. You said total body balance at one point. And I got to be honest, man, like we use tech obviously on this podcast. There's a lot of good things about tech. I've been editing video digitally for 20 some years. I'm in the world, but I got to be honest, it drives me crazy sometimes, man, the push to get, like we've talked about it, updates on the phones every damn week. It's like, I don't even know what's going on half the time. I don't even understand it. We do this podcast. We just have a conversation. I've never edited this thing, maybe a couple times to take out a word or something like that. But other than that, it's just a conversation. And, I look on YouTube sometimes and I'll see people recording their videos and they just cut out every dead space. It's their heads bopping around and it's all edited. And it's just like, squeeze it in, So, but anyway, back to this total body balance thing. We can talk about aero helmets and pointing aero bars downward and all these kind of things. But like when I think about if you could, that hamstring machine example you used.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. Like if your quads are like dominating all the time, and I'm a perfect example of it. I know what I have to do. I just don't do it sometimes, right? Because my hammies are a little weaker or whatever the case may be. I don't know. But if you can get the muscle balance in your body aligned, where because most of us are one hand dominant, right? So even in the swim, right? You know, people wonder why they're not going straight or whatever. Well, probably they're overpowering with one side is probably a pretty common thing, I would imagine, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going like me, I'm a right hand dominant and you know, next thing you know, I end up with a right shoulder problem and I got wrist issues, you know, and shit. I'm just overpowering. But if you can align that balance in your body, you're going to be faster. You're going to be a better triathlete, period. You know, so that's why when I talk about yoga, I've talked about it since we started this podcast, but they always focus equally on both sides. And you can go to a yoga class and find that out in a hurry. All right, do the, you know, tree pose on your right leg and it's easy. And then you try it on your left, you can't even hold it for a second. You know right there what's going on. And this is such a sport of equal pressure and equal effort on both sides and coordination on both sides. If you can figure out that problem and solve, you know, the balance issue, you're going to be better. It's got nothing to do with, you know, like the newest nutritional trick or any of that shit. You're just going to be a better athlete if you're more balanced. And that's what I mean when I think of simplicity and keeping it, you know, just keeping it real. Like what's going on with your body? If you're just like hammering your right leg on the run all the time, and you know, eventually you're going to get into injury. You know what I mean? It's just like everything's going to get out of whack. So I just think about stuff like that too. You know, it's whenever I try to do it all the time, and I've mentioned it many times before. But like when I'm counting steps or counting strokes, and I always try to count with my lead arm being my left arm. It's my weak arm. I'm just slowly. But I think that that's the work we need to do sometimes, right? Is to balance the body and get it working in, you know, in sync more than, you know, it's like when I started playing drums, my right hand is just so much more coordinated. You know, I broke my arm once when I was a kid and I was trying to write left-handed. It sucks. It's hard to do. But if you can balance that out, I think it kind of like does something to the mind too. And it creates a better flow in your body. If both arms are naturally moving in sync, you know, I still, my left arm in the water is just not as coordinated, not even close. So it's easy to fall back on the strong side. But I think to me, that's a big part of this sport, to be honest. I just think that if we have a good balance, you know, you're not going to get as injured. You're not going to get as fatigued. You're not going to create problems and tension and all that kind of stuff. So I know that's the kind of shit that nobody wants to hear, but in reality, it's a longevity thing too.
It is. And I got two things to that, then we can close. But one is you're saying about the drum thing. That was before this last NHL draft. They were talking a ton about Connor Bedard, obviously, and we were watching some stuff, and they were showing kind of a documentary about him, and they said that the reason that his shot is as great as it is, he broke his wrist, I think, in high school, is on his right and his dominant side. And so he spent the next like 3 to 4 months. He couldn't skate, obviously, but he was in his backyard learning how to puck handle with his other arm.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, time and work, not, you know, buying something. And then going back to like your balance thing and how off balance we are is like what you said about working on it. The triathletes most triathletes first move to address balance is to buy a piece of gear or equipment or device to now measure imbalance and to research that before we do the work. And
just go to a yoga class, man. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. Go to a yoga class again, you know, or do, you know, basic things where you know, stand on one foot for see how long, and then the other one, you can take 2 seconds. Like, again, like I think Listen, I'll be honest. As we close, I'm sure a lot of people hated this podcast because it's kind of a punch in the gut. It's maybe a slap in the back.
I'm gonna call it quick fixes.
But but it's true. And I'm telling you this from, guys that have been in the sport for a long time and, coaching for a combined 20 plus years. Like, it's a lot simpler than you think. And the more things you add, it's just the more opportunities to add to confusion, the less likely you are to, make additions to completion. And the sport's way overcomplicated as it is. It's so simple. It's not flashy. It doesn't have to be spectacular. You don't have to buy a bunch of stuff. You need hard work. You need the basic gear, and you need to make the time. Like that, honestly, that gets you 90% of the way. Yes, other stuff can make you faster, make you want to train, but all that stuff, it's extra. Again, go back and look at the bikes they were riding, the shoes they were running in back in the day when they first did the Ironman in Hawaii. They stopped at McDonald's en route on the way, and half of them probably still be most of your times listening to this podcast right now. On road bikes with styrofoam helmets. And goggles and Speedos and no wetsuits and no carbon this and no aero this. And, they probably took in, 300 calories total on the bike, or they were taking in, sandwiches and potatoes, and there were no gels. And it's funny to look back on that and think, about the times they were, and it was just work, a Timex, maybe a heart rate monitor, and a spreadsheet. Like, and I encourage you people to get back to basics on some of those things, and just forget, don't forget what it's like to work hard to achieve something, not to, figure out extra data points on the way to get you there. It's hard work. Hard work gets you there. So hopefully this podcast resonated with me.
I just have one quick thing to say here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I just want to kind of, because I did sort of spend a lot of time in the marketing world, and I just want to let everybody know what's going on out there. There's actually companies out there, they're called Accelerators, and they're always pushing you and trying to convince you need new shit. That's just in your face every day. And I mean, I've come to the point where I absolutely despise marketing now. I just do, man. I see right through it, and I see what's going on, but I almost still fall for it. I won't even put my credit card on my phone because some of those Instagram ads are just, oh, this will do that? Shit, I need one of those. It's only $29. Sits in a box for the rest of its life, but like, you just don't need it, man. They're just trying to, they're playing to your fears and your insecurities, and everybody knows that. But I just saw it firsthand, and it just say no.
I think I sent you a picture. Maybe I did. We cleared out like our entire basement storage space this last weekend of stuff, like shelves on shelves of stuff. That's like, I mean, you need it at one point, but then you keep it for too long, and now you're just accumulating stuff. We need to keep that. We need to keep that. And so we got rid of all the shelves and all the stuff. Allie put it all on, like, there's like a Facebook page called Buy for Nothing, or something like, Buy for Nothing. And the people you just post in, people that want it, it's free. You put an endorsement bill, come get it. We cleaned out the entire storage space. There's not a single thing left. Put Hayden's synthetic ice back down on it, and took the goal from outside and put it down there, like clipped like 2 lamps to the side, and that's like his hockey room now, and he freaking loves it. But the point is like just how much you don't need, and then like this basics that you do need, which is for him is like he's been down there like twice a day, every day, loving it. And all he needed was a speaker, a light, and clear space to do work in. So I always like your marketing messages because you came from the dark side. So take them all and listen to him because he's got great advice. Yeah. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. This was a nice little slap on the back today that we all needed. Hopefully, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. You click on the coach tab and peruse the offerings we have right now, especially our new coaches. And if you need anything from Mike, he is available, Mike at c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, I'm available at Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man.
All right, dude. See you Thursday.
All right, buddy. See you. Parker, what's happening, dude? How you doing out there? Salt Lake, right?
Yes, yeah, Salt Lake, things are good out here. Got beautiful weather and starting to get outside more, so it's good.
Yeah. Are you a big skier? That's a big ski area, right? Or,
I'm not. Everyone asks me that.
okay, well, and I don't like to be everyone.
I skied a little bit growing up out in Michigan, so not like real skiing, but more of a warm weather sports kind of guy.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. So I am infinitely curious about the city of Salt Lake, but we're going to have that conversation at camp. Are you coming to Triathlon or Nashville?
Yeah, I'll be in Nashville.
Okay. So we met last year, right, at the Wisconsin camp, I believe. Or did we meet before that?
Yeah, I think that was the first time Wisconsin camp.
Yeah. Okay. And then you came back and you did Wisconsin. And I don't know. According to me, that was a pretty solid day you threw down out there. Felt pretty good that day. It was a solid race. I think you were top 10, right, overall?
Yep. Yeah. I think 9th overall.
Yeah, 9th. Top 9 overall. Congratulations. And you obviously you made a fan out of me, and you made a big fan of my mother, as you know.
Yeah, your mom before the race. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure she gave you some great on-course tips that morning.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was awesome. We had a great time together, and why don't we just start with kind of like give me a little bit your background on endurance sports and everything like that when triathlon came into the picture, and let's just start with that one.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up swimming, competitive swimming through high school, and carried it on a little bit into college, not real serious, just kind of like club swimming, more of a social group. And so moved to Chicago right out of school and wasn't really doing anything for a couple of years. And decided I kind of wanted to make a life change and just get healthier overall. And so kind of started to pick up running. And I really started with training for a 5K. And, I could barely, get to that distance at that point running.
And how old are you at this point?
Probably early 20s.
Okay.
I think.
So you
made
made
a couple years out of school.
Mature decision to get your life back under control in your early 20s. So
yeah.
It's
I mean, it was really as simple as training for a 5K.
Right.
But kind of started out, and I remember running along the lakefront path in Chicago and thinking like, I want to go further, like more closer down into the city, and it kind of snowballed from there. So like just upped it to training for a 10K and then half marathon and eventually a marathon. And so that's kind of how I got into running. And triathlon was always in the back of my mind as something I wanted to get into. And so once I kind of had the swimming and running down, just went out, bought a bike, and started biking outside. And really that year I started biking is when I kind of started tries. And that was maybe 26, 27 years old, probably.
Okay. All right.
And it just kind of went from there. Started with, Olympic 70.3 and got hooked on it.
Yeah, you did. Now, I assume that noise over there isn't like your cowboy boot spurs. It's your dog.
Got a couple of dogs here.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever I get on.
I don't think there's cowboys in Salt Lake, or I don't know. Anyway, so okay, that's awesome, man. It's kind of a sort of a typical how people get into the triathlon with the 5K, but you obviously had that swimming background, and I've seen you swim, and I attest that that you must have been a pretty good swimmer when you were younger too. So very impressive. And how do you think that? You think you're pretty good at instructing swimming, or do you just kind of get it naturally now, or do you have how do you work with people on the swim?
Yeah, so I actually coached youth swimming for probably 4 years, kind of more of like a summer job, kind of in between, or maybe while I was in school, kind of home from college, and that was a really great experience, just working with a kind of wide range of abilities of kids that some just starting swimming from scratch, and then all the way up to kind of some of the older kids that were kind of top of their age group. So learning how to coach all different styles of abilities, and kind of willingness to be there. Some of the kids kind of forced to be there a little bit, and so you kind of have to try different tactics with them. So that's really kind of where that started, and my really love for coaching.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because obviously when you're a kid, things just come easier to you, I think, and you probably saw tremendous improvements over short periods of time. And now we're talking about triathlon, where there's a lot of adult onset swimmers that really just don't have that background and don't pick it up. Do you have like a common thing you see with a lot of, one of the biggest problems that you might see with, triathlete swimmers that maybe didn't grow up swimming?
I honestly think the consistency is a huge piece of that. I think about people getting started out in swimming and getting to the pool 3 times a week versus as a kid, you're swimming 6-7 times a week, 2 hours a day. And so it's really tough to kind of build that skill, only getting to the pool 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm a huge proponent of, even if it's just really short distances starting out, getting to the pool as often as possible, to kind of maintain those good habits. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I see.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I'm that way, and I have just through experience realized that, we could sit there and pick apart somebody's stroke all day long, but if they're not swimming enough, they're probably swimming with decent enough form to be a fairly good swimmer, but they're just not putting it anywhere near the yardage in. And nobody grew up swimming, not many people, but they all grew up kind of running around the playground or maybe riding around on the bike, and they have that experience, they have that, legacy in their body, and they don't have it in swimming. So I cringe sometimes when we get so obsessed with, maybe your elbow's like an inch too low or something like that in the water. Like, it's just crazy to me. But anyway, because you're not fit enough to hold your elbow a little higher too. So the fitness is just a big play. But anyway, so how long you been involved with C26 as an athlete?
I joined in 2021, I think.
Okay, so
like
a bit.
Right after COVID. I was kind of coming off of a really big injury, a stress fracture is when I joined and kind of jumped in.
Yeah, I think I remember that vaguely. I know you were working with Robbie, and so do you have a biggest maybe lesson that you've learned since you've been working in the C26 coaching system?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me starting out and getting hooked on the sport, I was, very much type A, very data driven, maybe a little bit too serious in the sport when I was in my 20s. And that's a huge thing that I've taken away. Like, yes, I still work hard. I'm still kind of interested in the data side of it, but I've really, I think, relaxed and taken a more fun approach to the sport. So, still going out, training hard, being consistent, but, having fun too. And that carries over to the races too. And some of my best races have been when I've just gone out and really had a good time. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken from C26 is, looking back, and some of my worst races have been when I've been really serious and, kind of ultra performance driven. So that's been huge for me. And I've seen, really great improvement because of that too.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man, because I just was talking to Nikki about that a little bit, but we have, obviously, you were top 10 at Wisconsin last year, and we have, last 10 finishers, and I think we had that at Wisconsin last year maybe. And all of it is about, being relaxed and being able to perform, so it's all relative. And I think that, I guess my point is that we kind of preach that have fun, be relaxed, enjoy the day, but that doesn't mean we don't compete for the top, too. So, and I'm sure that's kind of how you approach it. It's like with me, I'm pretty laid back on this stuff, and, I can't make people do the work, but that doesn't mean I'm not intense or I don't compete, and I think that those things can really flow together nicely, if you understand how to do them.
Yeah, for sure. And Wisconsin was, I think, a great example. Just going out, is smiling most of the time, high-fiving people. I mean, that course has just awesome energy. And so, yeah, I ultimately think that was a big part of, doing well on that day.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long day. You can't be like super intense for that amount of time. I mean, you're going to, fall apart and crack. So I guess a follow-up is kind of how has your experience, and you kind of answered it, but maybe you can just go a little bit more on it. How has your experience as an athlete with C26, sort of shaped your coaching philosophy, at least to this point?
Yeah, definitely. I think, to kind of expand on that, it's really a balance. And like I said, I have that experience with being a little bit more data driven, but now moving a little bit more away from that, and also kind of the more going by feel. I think that's really important, and being able to adjust things and not being married to numbers and hitting this exact number on a workout or in a race. Super important to kind of know the other side of it, and being able to train and race by feel so that you can make adjustments on the fly, as you're doing that. So I think that's another thing that I've learned a lot from being part of C26, and has really helped me as well. So I definitely take that approach too. And yes, the data and numbers are important, but we also have to understand, how do those feel, and to be able to kind of adjust based off of how you're feeling on the day, what the conditions are. Really important.
Yeah. I'm big on that, numbers, kind of aligning with your effort and understanding how they work together, and I never used to be, I'm still not a huge numbers person, but, I've always respected them. I just always feel it's really important to understand your feel first. And,
right.
Because, like we always say, so if shit breaks down in a race and you got to go by feel, what are you going to do?
Right.
But anyway, so as a coach, what kind of things, what kind of wins do you like to see from your athletes? Like, what kind of things make you feel good as a coach? Like Nikki said, something like when an athlete kind of finally gets something that's been, there's sort of these theories and kind of concepts that are tough to grasp sometimes with athletes, and you have to sort of explain them in different ways. But that was sort of what she was saying, and maybe that's what you would want to say, but I don't know. What do you like to see from your athletes?
Yeah, I honestly, and having the swim background, I take a lot from just kind of progress in swimming. I think that can offer, a lot of big wins in this sport, is seeing progress in the pool. I'm working with someone right now who started swimming last year, no experience whatsoever, and just seeing his progression to, 130s consistently is a huge win. So, and that translates over to everything else too, right? Swim fitness can kind of, building a strong engine there can help not only with bike and run fitness, but also puts you in a better position to, be fresher for those disciplines. So, for me, that's something that's, I think, a huge win is seeing progress in the pool and something that's so technical and so difficult, especially for people who pick it up kind of later.
That's a really good answer, man. I think, because not only that, if you can take the fear of the swim out for probably at least half the people in triathlon, if you can take that kind of out as a anxiety piece, then you're getting somewhere. So that, I mean, because that's what people are afraid of, you see it all the time. But anyway, so what are you training for right now?
Doing maybe a local race or two coming up soon, and then I'll be back in Madison again for the 70.3, and then Kona to close out the year.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah. I talked to CJ yesterday. He's going to be out there in Kona with you.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's fun. Are you? That's a dumb question, maybe, but are you? Obviously you trained very hard to get to where you got at Wisconsin last year. And then I was kind of joking with him. It's sort of, you got to work your ass off to get there. And then you got to make a decision if you want to work your ass off again to not look like an idiot down the course. Not an idiot, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So are you going after it, or you just want to be solid?
I'm definitely kind of starting to ramp up and train hard for it. But, I also want it to be a little bit of a celebration, right? Last year was kind of a huge accomplishment for me. And so, yes, I want to do relatively well at that race, but also just have fun and, enjoy it as much as possible. So, that's kind of my approach to it.
That's a good approach, man. And I know they've changed things as far as the swim start a little bit. And I can't remember, is it just men and women, or they do age group now too? It doesn't matter if you don't know, but
I think it's all an age group.
Okay.
Age group start.
Yeah. Cause that was, interestingly enough, I knew a guy who was kind of about my speed. He had a good day at Wisconsin once and qualified on some roll down type stuff. So a pretty solid guy. And he went out to Kona, and he said the swim was absolutely horrible because what he found was there's so many good athletes out there that everyone is sort of the same speed. Right. And that becomes the big log jam, and you're dealing with it the whole day on the swim. But obviously, if as a good swimmer, you're going to want to get out in front of that. But if they're not doing it that way, it doesn't matter as much. But that's a big deal too, right? I mean, if you can get out of that water without anybody around you the whole time, which I assume was most of last year's race until the second loop, right? How much did you hit at the second loop, by the way? I get that question a lot. Did you have to go around a ton of people?
Yeah, a good amount. Yeah, I would try to stay kind of on the inside of the buoys. Okay. The ones that you don't have to turn around to kind of get a little bit of clear water, but it gets pretty congested.
I mean, it's night and day, right? That second loop had to be.
Yeah,
because you started up front.
It takes a lot of work to kind of relax yourself and try not to push too hard on it.
So they let you inside the buoys, huh? Because I remember I felt like they were always perpendicular up with the kayak, and they really weren't letting me inside last year, which is where I need to be. But maybe they were getting there a little slower, and you already passed them for one of them. That's cool. So anything else you want to say, man, about the being with the C26 team and what maybe a future athlete might expect in working with the one and only Parker Watt?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say to kind of reiterate, I think C26 overall has been a really positive experience for me, and really kind of taking a step back and making sure that, while continuing to work hard and trying to perform at a high level, also making sure I have good balance in my life. And that's something that I didn't have in my 20s, starting out in the sport, very focused on all things triathlon. And now I feel like I have a really good balance in my life, still training hard, but also enjoying it a lot, and it fits into my life. So that's really the approach that I take with my athletes, and really can kind of work with a wide variety, whether it's high performance and more data oriented, but also have that experience with kind of going by feel, which I think is a great combination.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I couldn't agree more, man. All right, buddy. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. I appreciate your time here today on the, C26 Coach Cast. But
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll be seeing you soon in Nashville, and we'll have to definitely catch up. I'm going to stop this recording, but we can hang on for just a second. Okay? Thanks, buddy.